So I found this case while I was looking at another missing persons case, and I thought that it was really interesting. It was a case I hadn't heard about before. This is the case of Jarrod Green. Jarrod Green was last seen September 30th, 1994. At the time of his disappearance, he was 20 years old. He is 6 feet tall, and he weighed between 140 and 150 pounds. Jarrod was last seen in Searcy, Arkansas. Jarrod's case isn't just a missing persons case because it is suspected that Jarrod met with foul play. And at one point, someone was actually charged in his murder. But let's get into it. So on September 30th, 1994, Jarrod received a call from a friend of his. The friend was asking Jarrod to meet him. So Jarrod left his home to meet Brandon Wheeler at the Searcy Country Club. Jarrod's family has not heard from him since then. Jarrod had told people that he owed Wheeler money for drugs, but that Wheeler had stolen something from him. And so Jarrod had no intention on paying Wheeler for the drugs that he owed him for because of the item or whatever that Brandon Wheeler had stolen. Jarrod said that he wasn't going to pay Brandon Wheeler, but he was actually afraid of Brandon Wheeler. And before his disappearance, he contacted a friend that he had lent a gun to and asked that the friend return that gun so that he could have it for his protection. That was a .38 Rossi revolver. So like I said, Jarrod was last seen September 30th, 1994. His vehicle was not found until October 3rd, and his vehicle was located in the Walmart parking lot. When his vehicle was found, the windows were down and the car keys were in the floor under the driver's seat. Jarrod's car was found on the 3rd, but he wasn't reported missing until October 5th. When Jarrod's vehicle was found, there wasn't any sign of him. There wasn't really a lot about the case until almost a year later, in September of 1995, a man came forward and said that he had information for police. So in 95, Charles Langley went to police and he had his own story to tell them. So in 1995, just under a year later, Charles Langley did an interview with police. And in his interview, he said that he was contacted by Brandon Wheeler and Jason Webb, who was Wheeler's roommate at the time. He told police that they contacted him and asked him if he wanted to help get rid of someone. They offered to pay him $1,000 for helping. They said that they needed to get rid of Jarrod Green because he owed them Brandon Wheeler $7,500 for a drug debt. Langley then said that later on in the year, in 1994, that Brandon Wheeler and Jason Webb told him that Green was taken out of the picture and that he was no longer a problem. They said that they grabbed him at Walmart and they were discussing getting rid of Jarrod Green's body. Now, you kind of have to take all of that with a grain of salt because in 2000, Langley recanted his statement to police. Charles Langley said at that time in 2000 that he didn't know Jason Webb or Brandon Wheeler at the time of Jarrod's disappearance, and that he was just repeating rumors that he had heard in the drug community. In 2016, they contacted him again to see, what he would say. And again, he recanted his statement. He said that he didn't know them at that time. And so in 2016, police kept investigating. They had a few different witnesses. One said that Jarrod came to his home in Jonesboro and that Brandon Wheeler had fronted him a lot of dope, but he did not intend to repay that debt because Brandon Wheeler had stole from him before. Another witness said that Jarrod had been afraid before his disappearance, so he left town But when he was out of town, a week before he disappeared, he received a phone call saying that everything was fine and it was okay for him to come back. So he did come back to Searcy. Like I said, that was a week before his disappearance. Police contacted Jarrod's girlfriend at the time of his disappearance, and she said that she had talked to him before he disappeared that same evening, that he called her and was like begging her to please go with him to meet Brandon Wheeler, said he was scared, but she didn't want to go. So she told him, no, she wasn't going to go. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is listed solely in the police affidavit for a warrant for Brandon Wheeler. I really couldn't find any other evidence otherwise. So I just feel like it's important to know, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But police allege that Brandon Wheeler's friend and roommate went missing 10 months after Jarrod's disappearance. They do not name who the friend was. Remember, Jason Webb was his roommate. Whether he had another roommate, I don't know. Police allege that the friend disappeared after bragging that he was a participant in the disappearance of Jarrod Green. Police also allege that in December of the year 2000, Brandon had a friend who committed suicide. But before he committed suicide, he confessed to a clergy member that he had details on 2 murders. In 2016, police did use cadaver dogs to try to unearth some evidence. They say that cadaver dogs did 2 different ones alerted at the same place, but they have not located Jarrod Green's body. So police did arrest Brandon Wheeler in 2017 and charged him with capital murder and abuse of a corpse. But those charges were dropped later in 2017. They just feel like they don't have the evidence to move forward. They want more evidence before they attempt to try the case in court. I can tell you that Brandon Wheeler sued the city of Searcy after his charges were dropped. He sued them in federal court. He said that they violated his rights by arresting him and a search warrant that they had done. That case was dismissed, and then he appealed the case, and that appeal was also dismissed. So as it stands right now, Jarrod Green is still listed as a missing person. He was last seen September 30th, 1994. And like the poster that Jarrod's family has shared, if this was your child, wouldn't you want to know too? So if you have any information, contact Searcy Police.